Greetings. My name is Letitia Hensley, and I'm the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools Director of Family and Community Engagement. We are excited that you are joining us today and know you will gain great insight from this session. At the conclusion of today's session, please provide feedback so that we can continue to support you with amazing sessions that will be provided throughout the year. Now, without further ado, we'll turn it over to our presenters.
All right, well, we will go ahead and get started. Good afternoon again. My name is Christopher Lacey Thompson. I am a specialist in the Office of Accountability here at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, and we are so excited to be partnering with Family and Community Engagement to bring you this Lunch and Learn today about end-of-year data and understanding any end-of-year data. I have one of my colleagues in here, the best data specialist I know, and I'm going to give her a second to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Broughton, and I will be co-facilitating today's session with Chris. We are happy to have you.
We are happy to have you and happy to be here to talk about our favorite things, which is data and assessments. So, really quickly, some beginning information. So if you need translation support today for our meeting and for what we're going to be discussing, there are some directions on this slide here that will show you how to do that. If you click captions, click show live captions and select the language from the drop down, this will do some automatic translation support for you through our platform. And there'll be a couple different ways we would love for you to engage with us today. You can, if you look on your screen, you should see a Q&A button. You should see a react button up in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So we encourage you to ask questions along the way if you have them. The questions will be monitored, and we will have a question and answer portion of our session at the end of the presentation. And also, please feel free to share your reactions during the presentation as you see appropriate. And you see all those things on the top right side. And also, so CMS and our Family and Community Engagement would love to hear from you. So we would love for you to please share your feedback. If you share your feedback, you'll be entered into a raffle for a $100 gift card. And the winner will be contacted by Friday, March 28th. And there is a link on this slide. So if you would like to be able to click on that link, and from our slideshow, our Family and Community Engagement team has dropped a bit.ly link in the chat. And in that chat has this slideshow, and all the links in here are live. So you'll be able to click on that survey to provide your feedback, which I know they want. And there are a few different resources that are in here as well. So, content before connection. Before we get started into our content for today, we want you to use that question and answer to answer this question for us. I know it sounds a little bit backwards, but if you answer this question for us as in the question and answers, we want to know which candy represents you today. Is it Pop Rocks? Are you popping with excitement to be here? Or is it the Almond Joy? You're overjoyed to learn about assessment data. Is it the Sour Patch? You know, maybe assessment data sometimes feels a little bit sour. Or are you a Kit Kat? You just need a break. We've put a question in the chat, and we're going to give you about a minute to think and tell us which piece of candy represents you today. All right, I see a couple of those answers coming in. Thank you to everyone who's posting. I have some nerds in the room. Always a nerd. I see a Kit Kat in here. I see a couple $100,000. Me, today I'm gonna be a Laffy Taffy because today I feel stretched, but that's okay. Teresa, which piece of candy do you feel like today?
I'm probably feeling like Mr. Goodbar. At this
Yeah.
moment of time, I'm good. Subject to change, but right now I'm good.
Well, I see Nicole is also Mr. Goodbar out there and lots of different things. So thank you, everyone. So we want to encourage you to continue and engage with us as we work through our presentation today. So let's dive into our content. So, today we're going to spend our time talking about the end of grade test and the EOCs, our big assessments, so some of those high stakes assessments that come from the state. So, what are EOGs and EOCs? So, the North Carolina end of grade tests are designed to measure students' performance on goals and objectives and grade level competencies specified by the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. And our state outlines our standard course of study, the standard things that all students are going to learn when they're in their grade level. Our schools and our district and our teachers take those standards and they use our curriculum to make sure every student gets what the state says they're supposed to have. And so there are a couple different purposes when we think about what an EOG test is for. One, assure that all high school graduates possess the minimum skills and knowledge that's necessary to function as a member of society. Here in our district, we're working to get our students through a K-12 educational program, and we want all of our students to be prepared to be a functioning member of society when they leave us. Also, assessment data gives us the information to identify strengths and weaknesses so that we can reflect on our programming to say, where are we strong? Where could we do better? Where are our students strong in their content knowledge? And where could we make them stronger? Also, lastly, it establishes additional means for making the educational system at the state, local, and school levels accountable. We here are in the Office of Accountability, so we're all about making ourselves accountable to what students are learning in their times with us. So, test results are used for accountability measures under the accountability model and for federal programming purposes. So there's a model in the state that calculates exactly how those test scores are going to be used and how we're going to be held accountable. So we get things like school performance grades, maybe you've heard about, or we get things like EBOS growth, where maybe you've heard about your child's school exceeding growth last year or meeting growth last year. On this slide, we have also put two websites, two resources where you can read all the public information about the EOG and the EOC. The first one is going to be the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction website. I would venture to say about 90% of the things that we as educators know about the EOG and that parents and families know about the EOG is going to be on this website. And so then there are a couple more things that are more nuanced to our district, and I have that link in here for you too. So I'll give you a second to try to navigate to those. The slides were put into the chat, and you can click on those slide links. They'll take you directly to that website. This is our resource and authority for all things EOG and EOC, and so that's public information for you to have too. So let's say you've went to the EOG and the EOC website and you're like, I still want to know more information. Where do I find out more about the EOG and these high stakes testing that students and families are going to be taking? So the state information, most of that is public. There's not a lot of internal information about the EOGs and the EOCs. We as accountability specialists often rely on the NCDPI website and lots of the documents that come from there, the forms that come from there, and the reporting that comes from there. We also have local assessments. So in our local assessments and local assessment information, so you can think about things maybe you've heard of iReady, right? Or maybe you've heard of a child's final exam. Those are what we call, or maybe you've heard of the MVPA, the benchmark. Those are what we call local assessments that we give to gauge and make changes and reflect upon our program here. And the best and most specific information you will receive related to your child specifically is going to be targeted through your school. All the reporting goes through this layered process we have state level reports that is then layered down to district level reports, and lots of individual student reporting is going to be at your child's school around those different testing times. So So another thing that when it's time for the EOG and EOC, those dates, those testing windows, and when we can do that, is decided out on our district's testing calendar and our school calendar. So what you'll see is some of the dates here listed for the EOG and the EOC. These are testing windows. So again, I'm going to refer back to this number 3 up here that says what specific day your child is going to take the test, when you should expect to receive information around the reporting. All of that is going to be somewhere within this window, but the best and most specific information is going to be relate to your child specifically, is going to come directly from their school. So those are all. So these two websites list lots of the public information we have. When you need specific information related to your child, the best place to go is to your child's school. So speaking of the information related to your child, Teresa's going to take over now and talk a little bit about some of the reporting that you can expect to receive when your child takes one of these end-of-year assessments.
Chris, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to start with a discussion of the individual student reports, and this is information that you receive about your specific child and their performance. It is produced by NCDPI. It gives information about the student's performance at the end of grade or end of course assessments, and they're available in PowerSchool Parent Portal just for a few days after testing. So families must use the web browser and not the app in order to access those reports. Okay, so we're going to acclimate to the report so that you're familiar when you get this information about how to read it and understand the information that is being provided. So you'll see here that it says at the top under that NCDPI label, it says that the report provides information on how your student performed on end of grade EOG or EOC, and it's going to give you your student score. And it says that that score is the only one way of knowing your students' progress in school. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to move here to this first section, and it talks about the achievement level. So you will see this on your ISR for your student, and this arrow is just going to indicate where your student landed. And we'll hone in a little bit more on that in just a few seconds. To the right, you'll see where you're going to get a comparison of the achievement level. And then at the bottom, you will get a description of the achievement level as it relates to the achievement level, the percentile rank, and the Lexile. So we'll go to the next slide. And so we're going to look here, and one of the things we wanted to note is that I'm going to back up just a bit. I know there's a image over the scale score, but you'll see that it says there that your student will either be non-proficient, they'll have a 3, a 4, or a 5, and those are the achievement levels. And then for your scale score, what's happening is you're going to get your individual child's scale score, and you'll see this noted in that top right left-hand part of the chart. And then you're going to see that comparison to other performances as it relates to your student, the school average, the district average, as well as the state average. So you're going to get to see that comparison across different forms of the test using the same scale score. Okay. The other part that we want to note on the individual student report is the percentile. And so again, you're looking at the percentile that shows your student's performance at a level equal to or better than the stated percentage of other students who took the assessment during the same norming year, which is the first year that the test was administered. The other thing that you will see is you will get a Lexile score, which may be quite familiar because Lexiles sort of give you a range as to text complexity. And that one is probably familiar because you also see that Lexile number on other assessments throughout the year, not just the end of grade assessments. But the Lexile refers to the reading. And for math, if we click Chris, yes, you get the quantile, and that's also another score that your student will get. And you can also use that information. I'm going to talk about that later on in another slide, but those two pieces also help you when you're trying to find other types of materials that can support your student or just supplemental support at home. So those two scores are really helpful in determining how to find additional resources outside of school, but specifically aligned to your student. The other piece of information to note is that the ISRs for RTA and let me take my glasses off so that I can see your Extend 1 students, they have more of a simplified version, less information, but similar in how it's structured and laid out for you. The other thing to note is that there are directions for how you may access the ISRs in PowerSchool. And the wonderful thing about this is that we have them in a variety of languages. So you're able to click on the links, get to the specific language that you need for your child, and then that way you can access the information. So they do offer it in a variety of languages. And I'm going to pass it back over to Chris to talk about retesting.
Dr. Lacey,
Yes.
just making sure.
Thank you. Let me do that again, but without not being on mute. So, the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction does allow some students who are not proficient to retest. So, what that means is there are certain students where, in certain grade level assessments, where our district and the state decide that these assessments are really important to understand what students know and where they are related to that content, and they decide that these certain students are eligible to retest. It's not every student. Yeah, sorry, I just heard my own echo. So this year, students who are, thank you, who are able to retest are students who are in grade 5 or 8, but they cannot retest on all their assessments. Students can select one area to retest. It could be reading or math, and your school will have guidance about which subject if a student who is not proficient would want to test. If a middle school student is not proficient and enrolled in Math 1, they're going to be required to retake the Math 1 test, and students are only able to retake one assessment, whether it's reading, math, or Math 1. So let's say you have a student who is not proficient in 2 assessment areas, they can only take one of those assessments. And student participation is voluntary. So your students are going to, if they're not proficient and they're in grades 5 or 8, your student will probably be invited to to do a retest, and a lot of times that relates to your student being eligible for different course offerings when they go to the next grade configuration, whether it's middle school or high school, or collecting the most accurate data as possible for your student if they didn't have a good testing day. So they'll more than likely be invited, if they're not proficient, to retake one of those tests by their school, and they can participate if you would like them to. So the district testing dates are, and re-engagement and testing dates are outlined on this slide here. And when you see re-engagement on that slide, is what that means is that between us learning that a student has not been proficient on their first EOG, and before they take that second EOG, that retest, there has to be some sort of, the state says there has to be some sort of re-engagement with the content. So whether that's a day or two of extra tutoring, a day or two of review strategies that could be helpful. There has to be some way students re-engage with the content they've already learned to prepare them for the retest. So you see our re-engagement day outlined here, and then you also see that our test days are outlined here. As we learn more information and as things may change about retesting, know that again, your child's school will have the most up-to-date and accurate information related to retesting.
Okay, so we've talked about all the different ways that your child or your student is assessed at the end of the year. We've talked about the reports and how to understand what the information is telling you about your child's performance. And so we wanted to also provide information beyond the data. So what would be my next steps? How will I use this information to continue to support my child at home? One of the things we wanted to do is remember we talked about the Lexile level for reading. You can find engagement resources based on your student's Lexile level for summer reading. If you go to the public library, you can get the assistants there at the library to help you find specific text on your child's Lexile level. For engagement resources for math, you're going to want to use that quantile level to be able to determine what's the best activity that's appropriate. Whether you're doing something online, you'll have opportunities to find activities best aligned to where your child performed. Also, let's say that you decide that you want to get some summer tutoring for your child. You'll want to use those quantile and Lexile levels as well as information specific to skills and or strategies or standards that your child needs additional support with. And you can use that information. You also will get, depending on your child's age, the Dibbles Home Connect letter, as well as activities that may be recommended there as well. And also, there may be additional information forthcoming, but there may be information around the iReady pathways that your child was using during the school year, and that may be some additional considerations for support using the information. If CMS is offering any summer programming, you may also want to consider that. And then as Chris noted, you also want to be mindful of any information that you get as it relates to retesting and making sure that you're kind of up to par on what your next steps would be. And this is just things you can consider beyond the data.
Again, so we have come to the end of our session. All the information that we're going to give. And so again, the Family Community Engagement Team in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools wants your feedback. They value your voice and want you to share your feedback about today's session. So linked here on this slide, if you accessed it from the bit.ly, is the survey, and you will be entered into a raffle. And it has also been dropped in the question and answer by the Family Engagement Team. So they would love your feedback, and if you want to be entered into a raffle. So Teresa and I are going to stop talking for just a few minutes, and if there's any questions that linger, if you could drop those in your Q&A, and we'll be here for a few minutes to answer any more questions you have. But thank you for listening to us today and engaging with us, and we hope the information we provided is helpful as you support your student. Thank you all so much.
Families, thank you so much for your participation in today's session. We have one question in the Q&A, which will be, what grades take these tests?
That is a great question. When you're thinking about the end of grade tests, the EOGs, I'm going to name grade levels and content areas because they shift a little bit. So when you're thinking about the end of grade tests, the EOGs, you take those tests in third grade for reading and math, in fourth grade for reading and math, in 5th grade for reading and math and science, in 6th grade for reading and math, in 7th grade for reading and math, in 8th grade for reading and math and science. After 8th grade, those standardized tests are not sequential, and so they switch to end of course tests because, as you know, sometimes the courses, instead of being a year long, like in 5th grade, they're a semester long. So the end of course test, and students would take those in Math 1, whether you take that in middle school or high school, in Math 3, in biology, and in English 2. And those are the only courses that have the state EOG or EOCs.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next question asks, where can I access my son's EOG evaluation?
So what'll happen is EOGs that we take this year, those individual student reports will come home to you a few days or a few weeks later. Typically, it's right around the last day of school. Any individual student reports you would like for previous years, if you contact and go to your child's school, they are kept on file there. They can make copies for you of previous year school reports. And also, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, that parents can also access them in Power School. Parents can also access the ISRs in Power School. Yes, in the parent portal. Yes, thank you. And if you need information about the parent portal, you're going to get that from your child's school too. There'll be directions and a code you need to set that up if you don't have it already. And not Parent Square, but the parent portal for Power School.
And just a reminder that you won't want to do that on the app. You'd have to actually be on the website, the web browser.
Great information and helpful tips on how to best access and navigate that platform. Thank you, team. At this time, we've answered all of our questions in our Q&A. Families, if there's any remaining questions, please provide them within the feedback form, and we are happy to make sure that your question is answered. We appreciate you joining us today to learn more about understanding the end of year assessments, and we look forward to seeing you at future Family Academy sessions. Thank you so much to Dr. Lacey and Ms. Broughton for sharing such valuable information today. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.